Hello, everyone, and welcome to Mastering Life Shorts webinar 24. Today, we're going to be talking about accountability. Now, again, like many of the webinars that I've presented, this one, many people will have seen many different models about accountability. What I'm going to do today is give you one model of accountability that maybe you haven't seen before, that you can use in both your workplace, if you are someone who leads people, if you're a manager or a leader, or in your home life with family members, with loved ones, or even with yourself. So without further ado, let's talk about traditional accountability. So in traditional accountability, this is what normally happens. You have a boss, and I'll use the workplace example at this point in time. You have a boss who comes and talks to an employee or a subordinate and says, I would like you to do this. They then go away. And over a period of time, up to maybe a year in some cases, the employee or the subordinate does a load of work, and through no fault of their own, whatever that target that was set hasn't been found, hasn't been met, and the employee or the subordinate gets a telling off. And this happens all the time. Where targets are set because they've got a meaning for the business, the employee quite often works very hard and it doesn't really go anywhere. And what happens is that the people feel very disenfranchised. There's a bad relationship between the leader and the subordinate, and it all spirals out of control. This happened to my entire colleague set in my previous job when I was part of a field team in Asia for an international company. And our central head office had set us some very challenging targets, which we were really trying to hit. But ultimately, completely out of our control was the fact that the product didn't match the customers, that the market research that had been done was wrong, and that the people in the central team who weren't part of, or in the UK who weren't part of the central team, were actually actively standing in the way of us doing the things that we needed to do to hit our targets. And of course, what happened was the field team were blamed for all of this, many of whom either left or were made redundant. And from what I've been told, 2 years down the line, nothing has changed. Exactly the same things are going on again and again and again, because the targets were set by accountants, not by the people actually involved in the process. How does it work when you're at home? Well, far too often you start a new course or a diet or a fitness regime, and you've got all the drive and determination. You're going to go ahead and you're going to do things. And then life gets in the way. You get invited to parties, or something else is more important, or something comes ahead and you end up failing, or not getting getting to the weight that you wanted to get to, or whatever it is. It's very negative, the whole process. Accountability is often seen as a carrot and a stick in order to get something. So if you do this, then you will get a promotion, or you'll get a bonus. Or I've seen people who literally put chocolates inside their university textbooks, and if they get to that point in the textbook, then they can eat a chocolate. Or it's a stick in that if you don't do this, then you won't get your bonus, or you'll lose your job, or you'll be penalized, or something in some way. Some people then bring in accountability buddies, and sometimes they're coaches like me, that they'll bring someone into the equation who will be the person going, yeah, go it, do it. And there's definitely something to be said for having someone that you say out loud, I am going to do this to, because that tends to help you to move forwards in life. However, all the time, there's things that happen. So I personally was an accountability buddy for someone doing a fitness regime the other day. He then texted me and said he'd fallen over, he'd hurt his leg, he has to pull out of the fitness regime, and this happens. So What I'm proposing is a completely different model, which you may not have seen before, which was designed by Elena Noel. Now, I'm going to go very briefly through this model now, and then I'm going to talk to you about each of the steps in the model as we go through. So the first part of this model is the desired results. Now, in many, many cases, people will talk about SMART targets or KPIs, key performance indicators. SMART targets, for those people who don't know, are specific, measurable, achievable, realistic or relevant, and time bound. So they're very much, the important thing here is the result is something that you have defined and everyone knows what it is. Then after you have defined your defined result, desired result, you then have a meeting with the person being held accountable for some work. And in that meeting, you will talk about their contribution, the challenge they're going to face, the possibilities for getting around those challenges, and the actions they're going to take. After that, they will go off and do the work, they'll put in effort, and then the whole process will be revisited at the end. Now, it sounds very similar to the normal model, but there are some key changes, key differences in here that make this very, very powerful. You can also use this for yourself by asking yourself the same questions. So if you have something that you would like to do, you can ask yourself the same questions to make sure that you get through. So going through each of those steps in detail, the first is the desired result. I've already said it should be SMART, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic or relevant, time bound. It's very much got to be, what do I expect to see when you have done what I've said you have done? So make sure you turn up on time to meetings. What does that mean? Does that mean that you're sitting at the desk with everything in front of you, ready to be part of the meeting? Or does it mean you walk in the door at the beginning of the meeting? I expect you to increase our market share. Numbers are better, but in what particular way? All of that is basic management stuff. What's important also, though, is the why. Why is it important to me as a manager or a leader? Why is it important to you as a subordinate? And if you don't include that why, then you're not including the subordinate in the whole process, and it feels very much top-down, imposed on them. So a good example of this is in the 1990s, Continental Airlines had a big problem. They were often late and they were being charged a huge amount of money for their lateness. And what they did was they said, we're going to break this down and make every single team member responsible, partly accountable for our overall lateness. And they said, if we come within the top 5 airlines in terms of on time every year or whatever it was, we will give every employee $65. Now that actually cost them $2.5 million every time they came in the top 5, but it saved them the $5 million that they would have spent on late fees. Now that's the desired result. We want to be on time. Once the organization has come up with the desired results, then you have to break it down to each individual person. What does that desired result mean to you? And that's when we go to the meeting with the subordinate, the contribution that subordinate can make. So in the case of Continental Airlines, it could be that the cleaner who cleans the airlines would be asked, okay, how can you help to make this airline leave on time? And it may be about being more efficient or just cleaning faster. The check-in staff, how can you make this happen? And maybe it's a case of we will close our checkouts earlier, we will open them earlier, we will get through everything faster, we will watch the lines and make sure that we're inviting people to the right lines. Whatever it is, each individual person can have a contribution to that effect. So the really key question is, this is my desired result. How can you contribute to that result? Now, notice it's not, I want you to do this, do it. go off and sort yourself out. It is what is your contribution. It is putting the onus on the subordinate to come up with that contribution that can lead you to your result. And suddenly, instead of a top-down thing, this is a subordinate saying, this is what I can do. The next question that is asked is, what are the challenges you're going to come up with or are likely to come up against? So what are the things that go in the way? Now, often what happens in an accountability system is that is only asked at the end, why didn't you hit this? And at that point, a whole barrage of excuses comes out. So if you ask at the beginning, in the first meeting, what's going to be the problems that we need to get around or you need to get around, then the subordinate can then sit there and think, these are the things that are really going to get in my way. So even if I'm talking to myself and I'm thinking, well, I would like to lose some weight, and I put that down to a particular target. I'll say I'm going to lose 8 kilograms in the next 2 months. I then notice that I've got Christmas in the next 2 months. So it's absolutely no way I'm going to lose 8 kilograms in the next 2 months. I'm going to put that back to the end of January. So there may be some negotiation, or it may be that you need to think about possibilities. So what are the things that we can do to get around that? So maybe I need to say to myself, I'm not going to drink until Christmas week, or mince pies are banned from my house until Christmas Day, or whatever it is. And again, within an employee subordinate relationship, then you would be asking them, what are the possibilities for getting around the things that are going to get in your way? They then leave the meeting with a list of actions for what are their first steps. The thing is that far too often these meetings take place, and then the next time they're checked is not for another year or so. And that was certainly the case when I was teaching. I would be hauled in every August, as when I was a head of department. My head teacher would go through our results and then say, okay, how are you going to improve them next year? They'd be handed a set of targets. You will get this number of students through with A star to C grades or whatever it is by next year. See you later. Instead, first of all, I would have had conversations about whether the targets were correct and whether they were actually achievable, because in many cases in the past they weren't. I would then have looked at what the other departments were doing, what the parents were doing, what the students were doing, what I could do about them, how I could get around those targets. And then I'd have a list of actions. What am I going to do next in the short term in order to do that? You then need to put in the effort to actually do the work. So the work is done by the subordinate with relevant check-ins if necessary. And then you revisit. Now, this is the other key point of this whole cycle, is that the revisiting meeting isn't a looking back and then slapping you on the wrist for anything you didn't do or congratulating you for anything you did do. What this meeting is about learning. It's very positive. So instead, you should look back and go, okay, brilliant. You got your targets. How could we do it better? What were the challenges that you faced that you didn't foresee, and how can you foresee them in the future? Oh, you didn't get your targets. So what were the challenges you faced that got in the way, and why didn't you foresee them? How could you get them around them next time? How could you improve this process? What can we do together? The one thing I haven't mentioned so far is support. And again, it may be that in that possibilities section, the employee, the subordinate, should be saying, this is the support I need. Or if you're talking about yourself, I need to ask my partner to not bring any chocolates into the house because that's what I need, or that's what I don't need. So all of this support may be in there, and in the revisiting, you need to be open to saying, you know what, you didn't support me, you didn't help me in this. Now, every single circumstance will be very, very different in this, whether you're doing it for yourself or in the workplace. So as always, I've put together a worksheet. It's on my website, englishleathermaster.com/mastering-life life-shorts. You can download that worksheet, and in the worksheet, it will go through that whole process and help you to understand the different layers. And I've given you some of the questions that you can be asking as you're going through the different steps in the process. However, this is really a case that it's worth getting in touch with someone like me, a coach who can help you work on your own individual issue or challenges, and think, okay, what are the questions I need to be asking about this? And how can I make this process work for me? How can I implement this in my workplace? If you're interested in that, go to my website, EnglishLeatherMaster.com, and click on that, the button that says Experience Coaching, and I'll give you a free 30-minute session and we can talk about this. The website is there in front of you. The password is results with a capital R. Next week is going to be the last Mastering Life Shorts for this year. I will come back in the next new year, but I need the next few weeks to really concentrate on a couple of other projects I've got, including some exciting writing I'm doing for a book. So I'm going to be going next week on coaching questions. I'm going to give away some of my secrets for being a coach. But in the next week's webinar, I'll be showing how you can use coaching questions, both in work and in your home life, to really improve the communications and the way you're working with people. So I look forward to the last Mastering Life Shorts for 2020 next Monday. See you then. Bye-bye.